Hey guys, Sean Klinger with Cahuilla MX. Today we're looking at the 2022 Honda CRF450X. Originally, we did test this bike in 2019. That was the first year that this model got pretty much an all new chassis and engine package. There isn't any changes for 2022, but this is still a valuable bike. It's still a bike that it really fits a niche if you're looking for a green sticker bike. There aren't very many green sticker bikes left. The WRs aren't green sticker anymore. So this bike is actually pretty close to the Honda CRF450L than it is necessarily the R version. The generation before this it had been the same bike for almost a decade. I mean, it's been a really long time that it was the same bike. Desert racers, Johnny Campbell's team and Mark Samuel's team, anyone that raced in Baja or in the desert, they used a Honda CRF450X. And the reason being is that it has a 6-speed transmission. The teams are very comfortable using that bike, very comfortable working on that bike because they pretty much it's been the same for a long time. In 2019, it got basically the all-new chassis and all-new engine, and that's what we have here. Since then, the R model, obviously what Roxon and Tim Geiser are racing, basically that's an all-new model, and this is the older gen now. When looking at this bike, the frame isn't interchangeable with that the other R. It has to be a little bit wider because of the 6-speed transmission. The bottom case of the engine is actually bigger, so the frame spars are a little bit wider down low. It has a slightly different cylinder, a different head, a different camshaft. So it's green sticker, and therefore it has to have all those things for the EPA emissions. Riding this bike stock, it's great for exactly what it's designed for. The first time I took it out, I took it to Ocotillo and was ripping around out there. And if you haven't been out there, it's a lot of sand washes. It's very open, fast terrain, and it's perfect for that. The power is pretty mellow for a 450. If you're comparing it to an R or an RX, it has much less of a hit and it has much smoother power delivery. But that really does help for off-road riding, and it's so linear and so usable that it's great out there. The suspension in stock trim, it works pretty well as long as you don't push it too hard. It soaks up some of the harsh hits at a moderate pace, but as soon as you really want to slam through stuff in 5th gear and 6th gear, the suspension starts to have a hard time handling all of that energy. Speaking of energy, it has a lot of momentum. This bike is 275 pounds full of gas, so it is not a light bike. I would say that's one of the few cons of this bike, is that it's pretty agile when you're riding and you feel like you can move it around at a moderate pace, but as soon as you want to go really tight sections and really flick it around real quick, it takes a lot more rider input. So overall, the suspension in stock trim handles a lot of kind of intermediate riding well, but there was a few things that, this bike can go really fast, and the chassis is very stable at speed, and I kind of was wondering what else we could do. Since we already did a stock test of this in the past and there isn't any changes, we reached out to AHM Suspension. They know what they're doing for desert racing, and they had a lot of success out in the desert. They've worked on the generation prior to this and then kind of took what they've known and took that experience and now applying it to this new generation of 450X. They actually went softer on the spring rate in the fork, but they left the shock spring rate stock, and that's basically because the linkage puts a lot of leverage on the shock, and it's kind of a stiffer linkage system. So they want to leave that alone, and they said a lot of people, to get that hold up and to get that kind of performance, a lot of times they might overspring it. So they use a lot of valving. They also changed the bottom of the shock cup. There's a new bottom end that basically gives it 10 millimeters more of shock travel. They also, because a lot of people complain about the stock fork, that it has a loud topping out clank. So basically, when you hit a bump and then the fork fully extends, the top out spring is very soft. So you're actually bottoming out the top out spring. What they do is they put basically an A-kit spring in the top out section of the fork so that there's a little bit more resistance and you don't have that metal to metal top out. So riding it here today, I think they did an excellent job. What's cool is that I didn't give up any comfort. This bike stock is very comfortable to ride. It soaks up the little stuff. It handles some of the big stuff pretty well, but with this AHM suspension, they nailed it with the predictability. So it's comfort and predictability. Those are the two things that I was really after. And I noticed just kind of putting around at the lowest speeds, the suspension worked okay. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't like a trail bike, like soft, like really tracking the ground. It was a little bit harsher there. But as soon as I opened it up and there was faster sections of the trail and some whoops and some faster hits, I could really trust the suspension and what it was going to do, how it worked. I didn't bottom it anywhere. I slammed into some stuff, some hot laps. It handled what the bike could do and how fast I could ride. Yeah, I was really impressed with how they could take the suspension that worked pretty well for a lot of things and push it a little bit further into that performance without giving up that comfort that you really want. Basically, looking at the Honda CRF450X and looking at Honda's lineup of, 10 450s they have. Well, it's not 10, but they have a lot of different 450s. And basically, if you're wondering where the X slots in, it is kind of a small niche rider that is going to really benefit from this bike. It's someone that doesn't need the license plate from the L. Someone that really does need that 6-speed transmission, those really high, that 6 gear to race in the desert or really wide open spaces, but wants more of a punch and more of a hit and more of a lively motor than the L, but someone that maybe doesn't need everything that the RX or the R has. So if that sounds like you, the Honda 450X is still, it's a great bike for that specific type of rider. If you are on vitalmx.com, please check out our YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, click like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.